Hi, so good afternoon, everybody. Hi, this is Ken O from Canton Chambers Lawyers. We are New Zealand-based immigration lawyers, and this is, I think, it's a fifth Facebook Live. And today's topic is for New Zealand nurse registration. Then how you register a nurse in New Zealand, and then how you migrate into New Zealand. Today we are going to brief discuss on this matter. In New Zealand, for in a medical system, is all like a government funded. So government spend a huge amount of money into for New Zealand people's the healthcare, like health industry, and then in now New Zealand, around like some 55,000 nurses are actually working here in New Zealand as a practice certificate in a nurse council. Around more than 55,000 nurses are working all over the New Zealand, and still like a big demands, big numbers of the nurses are required in New Zealand. And then in a job vacancies side, and then this is very easy to find a job, easy to get a job in New Zealand as a nurse. However, you have to, this is a health industry, and then you, so excuse me, this is a health industry. This is very important for New Zealand peoples for like life and death and then health matter. So you have to be registered here in New Zealand. It means that you have to get some license to work as a nurse in New Zealand. So I think every country nurses are very short. I understand so many Filipino peoples are working in overseas as a nurse, and then I know for so many people so many nurses are working in Middle East as well. So in New Zealand, is also like a big demand for nurse, and then I can briefly explain to you. And then in a health industry, all the cost is funded by government. So I can say nurses are quite good payment job, and then so it's a quite good job here in New Zealand. So I can say for briefly, there's what is the requirement to be registered here in New Zealand as a nurse, and then many people got some experience and qualification in overseas, and then if they want to work as a nurse, and they have to be registered here in New Zealand. So for the requirement of nurse registration, and then you may study here in New Zealand as a nurse degree. Usually this is a bachelor degree, and then usually this is a 3 years course. Then purely you study as a bachelor degree of the nurse here in New Zealand. After you finish for bachelor degree for about 3 years, then you will apply for nurse registration in New Zealand Nurse Council. This is one way. And then the other way is for if you got any nurse degree, and then if you don't practice as a nurse, or if you want to restudy here in New Zealand as a nurse degree, then you can apply for a Bachelor of the Nurse here in New Zealand. In such a case, depends on your study in your overseas or you in your country, or like some practice of a nurse, and then New Zealand school system will give any credit of your study. Sometimes it gives you for 6 months credit, or sometimes for like a 1 year credit. So the maximum of like some 1 year credit you can get it. So that means you can finish for like 2 years study in New Zealand, and then further 2 years study in New Zealand bachelor degree. Then you can graduate of New Zealand nurse school, and then you can get some bachelor degree of nurse in New Zealand. Then you can register it as a nurse in New Zealand. This is a two-way. And then the other way is that if you got some nurse degree, nurse registration in your country, and then if you practice as a nurse, and then you are directly qualified to apply for any registration here in New Zealand. So I'll give you more explanation of this nurse registration as overseas qualified nurse and then practice experience. The requirement is for like there are many requirements, but I'll give you a very key requirement. You have to get some nurse degree, means for a bachelor degree. That degree shall be equivalent to New Zealand qualification. Some students, some applicants, they believe they got a nurse degree in their own country, and then they are automatically qualified to New Zealand nurse registration. However, when New Zealand Nurse Council make an assessment, they will check for what you study of your nurse qualification study in your country. And that means for any core essential study required for complete of your nurse degree, and it shall be the equivalent to New Zealand bachelor degree requirement. So you better to get some advice or consult in advance, and then you don't believe yourself, okay, I just like a nurse degree, so I will be automatically entitled or qualified for nurse requirement in New Zealand. And also the other one is you have to get some English requirement. For English is for IELTS, academic, and then you have to get some 7.0 or OET, and then shall be average at B over. And also you have to be nurse registration in your country or any other country as a practical experience, at least more than 2 years of nurse experience. And this experience shall be for at least 2 years in the last 5 years. So this is a basic requirement, and all other things for some details are required, but I'm not going to tell you all detailed things required. And then if you are really interested, maybe you can contact us, and then we can help you for New Zealand nurse registration. And also then maybe I can explain more about New Zealand immigration side as a nurse. As I told you earlier, and then if you are nurse degree and then nurse registration in New Zealand, and then registration, then I can talk to you more of for nurse registration process in New Zealand. Initially, then we need to do some for your all the documentation, the assessment first, and then we can collect all the your documentation, and then we can apply for your nurse registration here in New Zealand. Then Nurse Council will do some like all the paper, like a documentation assessment first. Once you are qualified, then they will give some letter to complete of the CAP course. This is a competence assessment program. You need to come to New Zealand, and then you have to study of the CAP course. Then so once for CAP course complete, successfully you complete, and then nurse council will give you final nurse registration. Then you can be a nurse registered here in New Zealand. Then you can find a job as a registered nurse, as a nurse job, and then we can move to next stage of the visa process. So then I can move back to for the visa program there. And then if you are a registered nurse, and you need to find a job as a nurse, and then once you find a job, and then we can go to for apply for your visa. And then if you find an employer, then you need to apply for work visa. And then later on, if your employer agree to sponsor to you for your permanent residence visa application, then we can apply for the residence visa application under the skilled migrant category. But as I told you earlier, and then nurse is a really big demands job, and then once you register, then you can get some easily find a job. And then for in New Zealand, there are many area of the nurse can work, most popular job for overseas nurse is for work in a rest home. In New Zealand, as I told you earlier, then for all the medical side is funded by government. Also, when the people get old, and then they usually go for retirement village or like a rest home. Most of rest home, they got some the nurses are there, registered nurse, and then otherwise the government do not have fund to for that people. So as I told you, in New Zealand, we have a very good like some benefit systems like a superannuation. If you become 65 years old, and then government will pay you as a superannuation. So that means you can use that money for your cost for rest home, and then that means for government will sponsor or like pay you all the cost for while you are in rest home. That means from your born and then until you die, government will look after you. This is a system in New Zealand so far. So when they get people like no power or no strength, and then usually go to for rest home, and then the rest home, each rest home, they will look after you until you die. That means each rest home they have to recruit, or they have to employ of at least certain number of the registered nurse. So there are so many rest homes in New Zealand, and then they need nurse, registered nurse. That is the reason why so many registered nurse is on demand, and then many of the restaurants they are struggling to find a good nurse to meet the requirement, and then the number of the nurse for their rest home is depends on how many like some patients you have, means for how many people in the rest home, and depends on you need how many people are required. So this is like a brief explanation of the nurse, and then as a nurse come to New Zealand, I can summary for you. And then initially you need to provide for all your documentation, and then we can apply for your nurse registration through the nurse council. Then once paper documentation all complete, then you need to do for CAP course. And CAP course is usually for there are many CAP course provide the institute, and then you may study for around 6 weeks to for 12 months, and then once CAP course is complete, then so you can apply for a job, and then once you find a job, and then you can apply for work visa, and then later on you can apply for residence visa. This is a whole process. We can look after you. So our firm, and then Canton Chambers Immigration Lawyers, and then we do whole like a caring service, look after for settlement service, and then look for your job as well, your nurse registration as a whole package program. If you are interested, and then just contact us, and then we can help you on your matter. Then you don't have any stress, just like follow our instruction, then you will successfully settle here in New Zealand. This is a brief my explanation to you, and also today many people like join to our live, and then thank you for that.
Sir, I just want to ask you some, for those who are viewers who just came late, they are asking about if you are a nurse who are registered overseas and they want to practice in New Zealand, what are the basic requirements to be a New Zealand registered nurse?
Yeah, this is a question already I explained to it, and I will make some summary again. And then basic requirement is that you have to get some at least for bachelor degree of nurse, and then you have to be registration in your country or some other country, and also you have to minimum 2 years experience in last 5 years, and also you have to meet the English requirement. This is a little high, and then IELTS is academic 7.0 over, and then all band shall be over